What's happening, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to a brand new episode of Caffeinate today for July the 22nd of 2019. Of course, for those that are brand new to the program, this is a daily gaming news podcast that I host 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, right here live on twitch.tv/Samuel Adams. Now, of course, if you can't catch the show live and you do want to watch it later, I do upload it to youtube.com/Samuel Adams Media, as well as podcast services around the world for you to enjoy any time of the day and any day of the week. But I'm just glad you guys are sitting here listening to me talk about the video game news you need to know. A couple of pieces of housekeeping. Number one, you might hear a lawnmower outside. I don't know, it's crazy. Whenever you do the show later, around specifically 1:30 in the afternoon, lo and behold, people are out working. People are out doing yard work. It's crazy what you come across whenever you don't get up at the ass crack of dawn. With that being said, bear with me, the audio may sound a bit different because I did move the setup from the closet, which I was working in, to the living room because it's quite nice and bright and open. I like it out here. So that's why the show might sound a bit different. But again, at the end of the day, it's all about the substance. It's all about the content, and we have plenty of content to talk about today. Our stories include another Blizzard co-founder leaving the company. We are leaving Frank Pearce behind and moving forward with Blizzard. Just kidding, he will forever be a figurehead in the industry. Microsoft sees a big dip in gaming revenue, but don't blame the PC. There are other reasons for that as well. Class action lawsuit is on the way for Switch's allegedly faulty JoyCons. Red Dead Redemption Remake is reportedly in development at Rockstar Games. There is a Super Mario Maker 2, Nintendo Switch, and Crash Team Racing domination happening for the June NPD results. Witcher showrunner confirms they won't adapt the games in the future. And finally, in other movie news, we have Borderlands discussions about the fact that a Gearbox boss wants a very iconic individual to star as Claptrap, and that is pretty much the lineup for today's show. But again, if you are brand new, welcome in. I do hope you enjoy what I bring to the table. And for those hanging out live in the Twitch chat, I appreciate you being here and hope you are having a fantastic day as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's top stories. First off, before we dive into the news that I discussed, we had a very sudden death last night of a very iconic individual within the esports scene, and I wanted to talk about it on today's show. StarCraft 2 personality Geoff iNcontroL Robinson dies at age 33. His cause of death has yet to be made public. StarCraft commentator and pro Geoff iNcontroL Robinson has died at the age of 33. Robinson was a StarCraft pro and one of the first players allowed to play StarCraft 2 during its pre-beta period. He captained the Evil Geniuses team and went on to become a popular caster as well as a streamer of everything from Apex Legends to Warhammer 40,000. The cause of death has not been revealed, but his social media accounts were updated over the weekend with this confirmation. Quote, "With immense grief, we announced Geoff's unexpected passing due to sudden illness Saturday. We ask privacy as his family works to understand what happened and make arrangements. To honor Geoff or offer comfort to his family, we suggest donations to @SoCalBulldog, which he loved." And so that's where the story ends. Again, there are very few details at this point, but I will say I've never been a big fan of watching competitive esports, specifically competitive StarCraft, but still a very iconic individual within that section of the community. I saw an outpouring of grief and of love and support from people on Twitter that just shows how much this individual was beloved by the gaming community. And again, something that's as shocking as a death at the age of 33 is jarring no matter what industry you're in, no matter if you are family, friends, just a random person on the internet. That's an incredibly shocking story to see, and one that I have no doubt is reverberating within the gaming community. But I did want to say, rest in peace to Geoff Robinson iNcontroL, who again passed away at the age of 33 from causes which are yet to be disclosed. But man, that's absolutely insane, and what a loss to the esports community. However, with that being said, on to today's news. First off, another Blizzard co-founder is leaving the company. Blizzard Entertainment is seeking the departure of a seeing, not seeking. They're not trying to get the man fired. Blizzard Entertainment is seeing the departure of another longtime executive. Frank Pearce, who co-founded the company back when it was known as Silicon and Synapse, announced that he has decided to move on from the developer after 28 years. Pearce shared the news in a statement published on Blizzard's website. It does not suggest he is leaving for another company. Instead, he talks about spending more time outdoors and pursuing other passions like learning to play an instrument. Blizzard president J. Allen Brack also released a statement on Pearce parting ways with the company in which he talks up Pearce's role despite the fact that he hasn't been the most public-facing roles. Like many of us, Frank is an introvert, Brack wrote. Thus, many of you haven't seen a lot of him publicly nor seen the deep impact he has had on Blizzard and on the culture specifically. But Frank has been here from the beginning, building and expanding the foundation and championing the values behind everything Blizzard does. Blizzard is better because of Frank Pearce. Fellow co-founder Mike Morhaime announced his departure from Blizzard late last year, with Brack assuming his role as president. And so, we have the departure of another big figurehead in the gaming industry, another big figurehead for Blizzard specifically, and something that I don't think is very shocking, because it's time to pass the torch on to the next generation of people that will continue to drive the industry, and that's something that we're going to have to come to terms with over the next 5 to 10 years. People that are foundational for many of the companies that we consider big pillars of the industry today are beginning to reach the age where they're retiring or moving on or changing occupations, whatever you want to call it. This is the time in which they're doing that. And so Frank Pearce helped pretty much spearhead a movement in the gaming industry that made a company that is forever going to be famous for creating so many incredible gaming experiences that are iconic experiences that will forever be in the gaming industry. That's really what it comes down to. What an incredible legacy to leave behind for a company that you helped develop. In 28 years, that's a hot minute. That's a long time to be with a specific company. And so, hey, a lot was achieved, a lot was done, and good on him for sticking with the company for 28 years and continuing through, of course, many, many ups and downs, and continuing to ensure that the company does grow and evolve with the years as they pass. But, of course, the future of Blizzard still looks fantastic. They have tons of games in development as we speak, and many of the games they are working on now and the franchises that are currently existent are still growing and evolving as time goes on, and definitely still finding their footing, but very successful nonetheless. So, to Frank, good luck with whatever life has in store for you, my dude. I hope that the retirement / moving on from Blizzard is everything you want it to be. However, with that being said, Microsoft is not doing so hot. Just kidding, they're still doing fine, but they see a big dip in gaming revenue. However, don't blame the PC, say the guys at PC Gamer. Biased, perhaps? Just kidding, probably not. Microsoft has been making a concerted effort towards PC gaming with things like Game Bar in Windows 10 and its DirectX ray tracing API, and that's all been well and good. Despite it all, however, the company reported a drop in gaming revenue over the past year. It's the only area that Microsoft saw a decline as it tallied up the numbers, so what gives? Don't blame the PC. Coming off the fourth quarter for its fiscal 2019 period, Microsoft noted a 10% $233 million year-over-year decline in gaming revenue and a 3% drop in Xbox software and services. Every other sector saw a big uptick in revenue, with most of Microsoft's various businesses posting double-digit percentage gains. As it pertains to gaming, the biggest culprit is the company's Xbox console. Xbox hardware revenue dropped a whopping 48%, primarily due to a decrease in volume of consoles sold. Microsoft did not provide any context for the slide in console sales, but the trend is not likely to reverse until its next hardware iteration, codenamed Project Scarlet, which of course is launching for a 2020 fall release, hopefully, each of which will be powered by a custom AMD Zen 2 CPU and Navi GPU. Due to this, Microsoft is likely undeterred by the drop. It was not that long ago when Microsoft said it was pursuing an expansive opportunity in gaming, both in terms of creation and distribution, and how games are played and viewed. Xbox Live now has 57 million monthly active users, and we are investing in new services like Mixer, which blurs the line between watching and playing, and Game Pass, our new unlimited subscription service. The addition of 5 new gaming studios this year bolsters our first-party content development to support our fast-growing gaming services, and our acquisition of PlayFab accelerates our vision to build a world-class cloud platform for the gaming industry across mobile, PC, and console, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said in October of 2018. Since then, the number of Xbox Live subscriptions has grown to 65 million. So since October 2018, you went from 57 million to 65 million. That's a pretty impressive figure. Meanwhile, Microsoft's PC revenue increased $468 million, which is a modest 4% jump, and Windows revenue went up 7%, driven by healthy Windows 10 demand. That said, Microsoft did not post an update on the number of active Windows 10 installations in the wild, but back in March, however, Microsoft's corporate vice president of Modern Life and Devices, Yusuf Mehdi, tweeted that Windows 10 had reached 800 million devices and the highest customer satisfaction in the history of Windows. Assuming the number still stands at 800 million, Microsoft is 200 million short of the 1 billion goal it had set for Windows 10 within the first 2 to 3 years following its release in 2015. It will likely get there, even if it takes twice as long as Microsoft had originally anticipated. And so, what's going on here? Why is Xbox beginning to dip? In the chat, Roy says Xbox just needs more games. Not necessarily. I see that kappa, though. I see that kappa. What's happening here is the end of a console generation. This is something you are going to begin to see across the board. And of course, it's going to vary from console to console and from company to company. But whenever there is new hardware on the horizon, the sales of the current hardware generation begin to decline because people don't want to spend between $200 and $400 right now when they'll have to do it again, or they'll have the option to get a better piece of hardware in 12 to 16 months. There's literally no reason to waste your money like that. And so that's pretty much exactly what people are beginning to see. To see Xbox hardware drop in the way that it did is not shocking at all. I think it's going to be the first one to drop significantly before the PlayStation 4 begins to decline as well and slow down until it eventually picks back up again with the launch of the next generation. The black sheep out here is going to be Nintendo because, again, you have the Nintendo Switch Lite. You do have the brand new model of the Nintendo Switch that has a better battery life coming onto store shelves later this year. So you have a lot going on with Nintendo that I think they are going to be the odd man out, in which their sales probably go up because, again, their new console generation isn't going to be around for a significant amount of time, so they're kind of a little bit immune to this entire situation. But when it comes to the flagship consoles for Sony and Microsoft, I do believe you are going to be seeing a big drop in hardware sales, as we always see whenever a brand new piece of hardware is beginning to come on the horizon. But I'm sure that Microsoft is not going to be feeling this too heavily, considering the fact that everything else is going up and Xbox is the only thing going down. However, with the acquisition of many studios, with brand new services coming into play, I do think that the next generation is going to be big for Xbox, bigger than the Xbox One generation ever could have been. And that is an exciting time. But you know what else is exciting? Class action lawsuits, because you could get one of those little checks in the mail that say you're entitled to a class action settlement or whatever. You could be getting one of those from Nintendo because a class action lawsuit on Switch's allegedly faulty JoyCons has been filed. Have you ever been playing a game using Switch's JoyCons, the little controllers that sit on the side of the console, and it drops some inputs or starts drifting towards a direction without you touching it? It's really infuriating, right? Nintendo even acknowledged that it can happen for a variety of reasons and offered to fix JoyCons in the first year after purchase. The fix, however, doesn't seem to fix fundamental issues with the controller's design, and some owners seem to be tired of it and are looking for a solution in court. A suit filed by Ryan Diaz in the U.S. District Court in Seattle, Washington, alleges that JoyCons overwhelmingly experience the drift issue. Given enough time, Diaz argues the problem becomes unfixable and games will perceive analog stick movement without any such input. Diaz activated Nintendo's warranty for JoyCons after first experiencing this problem and sent his in, only to have it crop up again a few months later. After one fix, Nintendo requires owners to pay for a repair, so Diaz just bought a new set. Under the suit, the plaintiff alleges that Nintendo knows about the issue with JoyCons from their own internal testing in the last 2 years of reports about the issue online. Nintendo's lack of warning on the subject is something that he feels is worthy of a class action lawsuit, and Diaz is seeking compensation from Nintendo for the problem. Business website Game Daily spoke to Brandon J. Huffman, an attorney with Odin Law and Media, who did not seem to think there is a lot of meat to this suit. Quote, for Nintendo, the best case is it gets dismissed or the class does not get certified for some reason, Huffman said. Worst case is that Nintendo faces millions in damages and millions more in attorney's fees, but I think that's pretty unlikely. Nintendo has yet to comment on the subject. And so, we have a class action lawsuit in the courtroom, ladies and gentlemen. Will it go anywhere? Absolutely not. So here's the situation. I haven't heard too much about this drift issue on mini Joy-Cons. Now, after doing a bit of research on the Twitter, whenever I started to put this story together and learn more about it, I do believe there is something to be said about the fact that the Switch might not have the best designed controller when it really comes down to it. Now, will anything be fixed because of this? That's still yet to be seen. Obviously, Nintendo has not really been tweaking much of their design when it comes to the controller. The JoyCons have pretty much been the mainstay that has not been touched, and I haven't heard anything about any kind of redesign. But if enough people begin to talk about this, and if enough complaints are filed, then Nintendo is more than likely going to have to adjust their design, change up their analog sticks, and potentially make a better controller for you and I to use, which would probably be a pretty good option here. Of course, the hardware revisions would be perfectly timed as for right now. Again, you have these brand new consoles in development where you have the Nintendo Switch Lite and the brand new form of the flagship Nintendo Switch coming down the pipeline. Now, my big question here is how will this work with the Nintendo Switch Lite? Because again, as this the article actually says, the individual that filed the suit has the classic Nintendo Switch, and he was able to just pop off his Joy-Cons, send them in for a repair. When those ended up failing, he went and bought another pair of Joy-Cons. You can't do that with a Nintendo Switch Lite. So if the design is a similar kind of design, you might have to send in your entire Nintendo Switch Lite for repair, and that might not even be a permanent fix. That's where you begin to have some issues. So whenever you're talking about fixing something ahead of this next iteration of the Nintendo Switch Lite, this should certainly be looked into and ensured that this will not happen. Because if you have a controller that needs to be sent in for repair, a bit of a minor inconvenience at most, whenever you have to send in your entire console or handheld, that becomes such a pain, and that becomes something that is a pretty penny for Nintendo if more and more people begin to experience it. Because I'm sure that many people have experienced drift on their controllers. I mean, heck, I've experienced them on flagship controllers for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and I've just gone out and bought another controller. If I have to send in a console, that becomes a much bigger headache, a much bigger pain in the ass, so to speak. So that could change things drastically depending on exactly what kind of changes were made to the hardware of the Nintendo Switch Lite versus the regular Nintendo Switch console. But still, good to see people are taking advantage of the fact that they can go to court, they can make their voices heard, and they can bring these things up, and they should, because we have to ensure quality is held. But moving on, Red Dead Redemption Remake is reportedly in development at Rockstar Games. Do we need it? Still up in the air. A new rumor has surfaced claiming that Rockstar Games is currently working on a remake of Red Dead Redemption that will release sometime in late 2020 or early 2021, which presumably suggests it's in development for both PS4 and PS5, and both Xbox One and Xbox Scarlet, and maybe PC as well. It also shares a few interesting tidbits about the remake, alongside revealing that Rockstar is also working on Red Dead Redemption 2 story DLC featuring aliens. More on that in another article. The rumor alleges that the project is more of a remake than a remaster, and that it brings over the features from the new game. In other words, it makes it more in line with Red Dead Redemption 2 gameplay and features-wise. Meanwhile, the map is also being made bigger, though it won't include Red Dead Redemption 2's map. The rumor also claims that Rob Whitehoff, the voice of John Marston, has come back to record new lines of dialogue to help connect the two stories. In other words, lines that reference Arthur and the events of the first game. It's unclear if other actors received similar callbacks, but you would assume if they brought back Whitehoff, they would bring back others as well. Apparently, the remake was supposed to release on the game's 10-year anniversary, which is next year. Pause. What? How is it 10 years since Red Dead Redemption came out? But development issues might mean it's pushed to 2021. Further, some of Red Dead Online teams has been shifted to the project to ensure it releases on time. And this is perhaps the bit that sticks out and potentially discredits the rumor. There is certainly a lot of reasons to release a remake of the first game, namely making a ton of money, but to pull people from Red Dead Online to do so seems odd, because there is much more profit potential in Red Dead Online. Also, let's finish and then we'll go back to that. But at the moment, it's not being realized, mostly due to slow and lackluster support. That all said, take this with a huge grain of salt. This is a rumor from an anonymous source who claims to have a friend that's an environment artist at Rockstar Games. It's all a bit shoddy, and as you know, rumors pertaining to Rockstar Games are infamously unreliable. However, there have been shoddy rumors that have been confirmed in the past, so I suppose we will have to wait and see if this is, in fact, legitimate. So, in the chat, we have a question. Didn't we already get a remake of Red Dead 1 through Xbox One X backwards compatibility? I mean, not a remake, but you know, it is on the Xbox One backwards compatibility program. And so, the big question here is this a legitimate rumor? I don't believe this is any kind of valid claim. I don't believe this is happening, because it doesn't make sense. Red Dead Redemption Remake, if you just have a remaster that's put out on the newest generation of consoles, specifically on PS4 and Xbox One, that makes sense to me. For Rockstar to continue dragging out the original Red Dead Redemption and re-release it on its 10-year anniversary could make sense, but I don't believe they're going to be re-recording lines and trying to tie things back in with Red Dead Redemption 2. That doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know why they would go to all that trouble, because traditionally, they like to keep things pretty much so in line with how they were in the original game. And that's how many remasters and remakes are done. And so to come back and make a bigger map, to come back and make more lines of dialogue, I just don't see that being something that they would pour tons of money into, because then essentially you're making a Red Dead Redemption 1.5 that totally undermines the value of the original game. I just don't see that being something that is any kind of potential. I just don't see it happening. But again, it very well could. I just don't necessarily believe that this is a move that Rockstar would make, especially whenever you have work going on other projects that is obviously going to be taking the front of the priority there. Now, the big question here, Red Dead Online. I want to talk about that for a minute, because Red Dead Online I have not seen too much hype about whatsoever. If they were pulling people from the Red Dead Online team to work on another project, I don't believe it will be Red Dead Redemption 1 remastered, re-released, rethought, whatever you want to call it. I do believe they might be working on something else, but again, if there's any credit to the rumor of Red Dead Online teams being pulled, I mean, hopefully they are working on something that is a bit better than that. But Red Dead Online still has potential. I just don't think it's being fully tapped, and I don't think it will ever be fully what they want it to be, because the expectation going into Red Dead Online was too high, considering GTA Online was so successful, but they are two totally different gameplay experiences. So hey, some people like it, some people don't, but you could be getting a remake of Red Dead Redemption that does include a ton of new content, but you could not. But you could. Who really knows? However, let's talk about the big games that are selling for June of 2019. June was a bit of a slow month for games, but the hits all had the attention for themselves, which no doubt had a big effect on the business of video games in America. According to NPD, all segments, software, hardware, accessories, and game cards declined during the month. With $959 million in revenue, spending saw a 13% drop over the same period last year, though considerably higher than last month. Of all segments, hardware saw the biggest drop, with a staggering 33% decline in spending, only bringing in $235 million. As has been the standard this year, the Nintendo Switch is the only platform growing year on year, and was the best-selling console in June, both dollar and unit sales. The Switch also continues to reign supreme as the year's best-selling platform. Software sales generated $386 million in June, a 1% drop compared to June last year. Thanks to the Switch's success, Super Mario Maker 2 was June's best-selling game. Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled came in at number 2, followed by Mortal Kombat 11. All three flourished, with Super Mario Maker 2 setting a new record for launch month sales of a Mario Maker game. Okay, beating both the original on Wii U and its 3DS port. Likewise, Crash Team Racing sold more copies at launch than any other Crash Bandicoot game in history, beating Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. Just quick brief hiatus here from this story. Let's go over onto the world of actual thought processes. Yes, Super Mario Maker 2 is going to be selling better than the other versions of the game because it's on Nintendo's most popular piece of hardware in 10 years. Yes, okay. Anyways, Mortal Kombat 11's status in 2019 as a bestseller dollar sales so far hasn't changed. More impressively, MK11 is now just behind Mortal Kombat 10 and 3 in lifetime sales, having just overtaken Mortal Kombat 2011. The charts also saw a surprise return for Spider-Man, which landed at number 7, and Spider-Man is the best-selling superhero game in U.S. history. And so, NPD all-platform software charts June 2019 include, again, number 1, Mario Maker 2, followed by Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, Mortal Kombat 11 at number 3, GTA 5 hanging in tough at number 4 so many years after launch, 5, Minecraft, which has made a huge comeback in 2019, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 6, 7 is Spider-Man, NBA 2K19 at 8, Mario Kart 8 at 9, and Days Gone hanging in at number 10. That is pretty impressive. Now, the PS4 and Xbox One games have a similar kind of division here, a similar kind of distribution of the popular games. But notably, you have Forza Horizon 4 hanging in at number 6 for the Xbox One, and MLB 19 The Show at number 5 for the PS4. So you're seeing a big change there because of course, console exclusivity. But the top 10 Switch games do include basically first-party Nintendo stuff, which is the bread and butter, but Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled is coming in at 6 for the Switch games in the NPD report for June 2019. And so, again, as we said with the original story about the Microsoft declining Xbox One sales, you have a similar thing across the board. The sales are down hardware-wise. The software sales relatively maintaining a kind of stagnation because, hey, you know, it's beginning to get into those summer months. There are some pretty big spring releases that are beginning to kind of wind down, some summer releases that are beginning to wind up. So you have a couple of big games that are selling well, but overwhelmingly, this is the period of the year in which tons of people take vacations, games don't really come out. It just is the weird time of the year for game releases, but still, the industry is doing fairly well overall. Overall, I think the big seller of the month was, of course, the Nintendo Switch with very, very good game sales, very, very good hardware sales, and again, it's just a weird time in the industry, so hey, it is what it is. But now let's talk about some movies, because The Witcher showrunner confirms they won't adapt the games in the future, and by movies, I mean TV shows, just the books. Lauren Hissrich, showrunner for Netflix's adaptation of the Witcher novels, recently took part in a roundtable with the press as part of San Diego Comic-Con. A reporter for The Wrap took the opportunity to ask whether the series was likely to go beyond the novels and into the territory covered by CD Projekt Red's games, which are set after them at any point. Extreme long vision is no. We will not start adapting the games, Hissrich replied. I can only attack one season at a time. I'm so excited for this one, the rest kind of makes my mind explode right now. If someone says what happens in season 7, sure, I have thoughts. Fingers crossed we get there. I guess that's a no to the unicorn scene then, says the article over at PC Gamer. Now, we did have confirmation that the bathtub scene could actually happen, so that's pretty exciting. But I like the way they're approaching the Witcher TV show, because if you just want an adaptation of The Witcher 3, which I think is what a lot of people are expecting to get whenever they just see The Witcher 3 or The Witcher Netflix adaptation in headlines, I'm glad we're not going to be getting that, because the game does so well when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to expanding upon that universe. We don't need a TV show to expound upon that anymore. We are already good when it comes to storytelling in The Witcher 3. But to have the books kind of retold, refinagled, to have the books better expounded upon, and to have these iconic scenes from the novels brought to life, that adds something that people that played the games didn't get within the games. That adds a value for those that do want to learn more about The Witcher and want to be infatuated with it. If they want to become the hardcore fan base, they can watch the Netflix series and hey, boom, you've got a new world of lore to explore that wasn't necessarily on the front and center display within The Witcher 1, 2, 3, etc. But of course, the Netflix series looking pretty good. Big trailer was revealed, and of course, screenshots, stills, all of this stuff has been coming out from San Diego Comic-Con and of course on Twitter over the past few weeks. But shockingly, positive response from the community. It seems a lot of people are excited about this, and that makes me excited because I do love the fact that this is in fact a show for all of the Witcher fans, and it is looking to be a pretty good one at that. But I suppose we will have to wait and see exactly how good it is whenever Henry Cavill, which I learned last night is actually Cavill. Did you know that? Henry Cavill is actually how you pronounce it, according to my friend at work, which again, very, very touchy source. You could actually be mispronouncing his name, which I have been doing on this show for the better part of a year now. But Henry Cavill, going to be a pretty good Geralt in the Witcher Netflix series. But The Rock could be Claptrap. Did you know that? Gearbox boss wants The Rock to star in Borderlands Movie as Claptrap. The team behind the upcoming Borderlands 3 have revealed they've got their sights set on Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson for the upcoming film adaptation of the franchise. Speaking to VG247 ahead of the release of the tongue-in-cheek post-apocalyptic roleplay shooter, creative director Paul Sage revealed that he's 100% up for the big screen adaptation. A Borderlands movie is currently in development with film studio Lionsgate, with Venom producer Avi Arad reportedly overseeing the project and Full Circle reporting that although it will pull from the source material, the film will feature a new female protagonist. But aside from the as yet unannounced lead role, we can expect other fan-favorite characters from a series to return for the movie outing, including our Vault Hunter's little yellow robot companion, Claptrap. And of course, there is a fantastic portrait of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who can in fact smell what he is cooking. Sage went on to reveal to VG247 which A-list actor would be his dream casting for the Borderlands movie. When we put forward all of the important question of who could play Claptrap, not Craptrap, my bad, on screen, Sage considers who could play Claptrap. Our audio guys would tell you, hey, we can make anybody Claptrap. But after a beat of deliberation, Sage is definitive. I think The Rock, The Rock has to play Claptrap. We'll see the next Dwayne The Rock Johnson on the big screen in action spinoff Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw this August, and then in Jumanji The Next Level. Could Borderlands be next on the hit list of blockbuster franchises for the star? And of course, Scott Kester, our director on Borderlands 3, offered a new take on the casting when we put it to him that Sage wanted to see Johnson as Claptrap. Also, it's weird to see The Rock referred to as Johnson. Ooh, that makes me feel weird. Do you mean as a voice or dressed up? Because if he was dressed up, I agree with him completely. As we don't yet know whether the Borderlands 3 film will be animated or live action, we couldn't confirm. In that case, Kester says, I'm going to go with Bill Murray. Yeah, that's who I want to play Claptrap. Maybe he would finally get an Oscar, he adds. The petition to make it happen starts now. Until then, Borderlands 3, the game, will arrive on the 13th of September for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Can you smell what Claptrap is cooking? I don't know if they're being serious or not. I don't think that's a good idea. Of course, Claptrap has a very specific personality within the world of the Borderlands franchise and a very specific voice. Now, it is very much so modulated, so anybody can be Claptrap, but I just don't know how a live-action adaptation of Borderlands would work, and on top of that, how The Rock would fit in. Or Bill Murray, for that matter. But again, you can pretty much make Claptrap anything. I just can't, as Roy says in the chat, imagine The Rock's voice coming out of little old Claptrap. Just doesn't really fit. But again, will this movie ever actually see the light of day? That's kind of still up in the air. If it were to see the light of day, I would want a more comedic Mad Max. That's what I want from Borderlands 3. And also, in general, from the movie itself. That sounds fantastic. I love that aesthetic that Borderlands brings to the table, and I think a movie could definitely do that justice. But with that being said, that rounds out today's episode of Caffeinate. Of course, if you are brand new to the show, I do hope you enjoyed what I bring to the table, and I do bring it to the table 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, live on twitch.tv/Samuel Adams. Then it's taken down and put up on youtube.com/Samuel Adams Media, as well as podcast services around the world if you do want the audio version. But until tomorrow, you guys have a fantastic rest of the day. I will talk to you soon, and peace.